Hello, noble players. I'm Sir Verdyh, and today I'm presenting to you a nano critique of Solar Ash. I won't go over everything the game has to offer, but I will go through the two most important topics. First, skating, and second, the intriguing story. So, how does it actually feel to skate around in Solar Ash? I want to say amazing, but I won't. There are cracks which I cannot overlook. Let me explain. The most important part of movement is the momentum. It essentially dictates how it feels to move through space. It is a very smooth experience. Lack of fall damage made me fearless. I was never afraid to boost myself high into the air, to fly like a bird. But instead of flying into space when I crossed the curved land, I was simply dragged down, with an invisible connection between Ray, my character, and the ground beneath her. I was constrained by the implementation details of how the space really works in the game. Instead of experiencing mind-bending gravity, I was reminded that this is simply a flat plane bent around to make it look and feel a little bit cooler. It is cool, therefore it felt great to punch through the land. It felt amazing to speed across the lakes of clouds, but when I truly wanted to take off, the game pulled me down like a gravitational pull of a black hole inside of which everything takes place. Not amazing, just great. An almost equally important part of the skating are controls. It can feel better than amazing, wonderful even, but if the controls are more cumbersome than moving a tank, then it all means nothing. Therefore, I was really paying attention to how it felt to move around, but it was again just great. In general, it felt amazing to move Ray around. The inputs are sharp and responsive, they react instantly. There are no combinations of inputs that fight each other, but just like with momentum, there comes a time when the controls are not intuitive. In general, it's not possible to change the momentum mid-air too much, just influence it a bit. This makes the momentum fluid, it feels a bit like controlling a plane. Whenever I pushed the stick in one direction, Ray slowly got dragged to that side. The direction change was smooth. However, jumping makes Ray change direction sharply. She was instantly thrown in the direction I currently held. It is very responsive. Therefore, there's a collision between two ways of interacting with input. There is a tremendous difference between jumping and then changing direction and doing the opposite. In one case, Ray is slightly guided by tilting the stick. In the other case, Ray flies off completely. For me, this was a jarring experience. I frequently failed my jumps between two rails, because instead of jumping and then inputting directional change, I would slightly tilt the stick right as I was jumping. This meant that Ray was thrown not just a little bit to the side, but completely off the rails. A tiny input mistake. A tremendous gameplay failure. I was also a bit confused by the rails. Specifically, whether or not I should jump at the end of them or not. I was constantly having the impression that in order to maximize my jumping distance I should jump right before the rails end. But the more I played, the more I started to get an impression that that's not the case. I started thinking that I should just let the slide end. That was a bit confusing because it was not a challenge. Playing a game where most of the challenges come from timing and tilt precision, having not to do anything was weird, especially towards the end of the game where I would expect more challenging sequences, but instead I had to just wait. Let's return for a bit to the gravity and the mind-bending construction of the world, which is fire. But Verdyh, you just said it was disappointing, what the fuck? I did, but that was about the feeling of being unable to fly into space because of the implementation of gravity. What is fire, however, is the level design. How well it works together with the gameplay to create tension even in a very simple scenario. Picture this, a flat plane in front of you with a couple of platforms. How tense it is to jump from one end to the other. Not very. Now, picture the same scenario, but instead of having a flat plane, you bend it so that you cannot see the next platforms. Now, add speed to it, and you get a very tense sequence where you must react quickly with precision. Solar Rush has this sequence towards the very end of the game. Despite the fact that I knew how to play the game already, I was still on the edge of my chair while navigating it. That's the power of curvature. It is such an amazing tool to create variety in the simplest sequences. For a game that is all about movement, precision and going as fast as possible, this is fire. It is the best choice for the level design. So, amazing tools and solid controls and mechanics are in place. But how well designed are the challenges? How's the pacing? What about mechanical progression? Again, those are great, but still just shy of being amazing. Why? The basics of skating are explored very well. Challenges resolve around being able to control the speed and precision. It's all about movement. Attacking is here, but it is still about the movement. How will the player get close to the enemy without getting hit? How will he dance around charging enemies? Following lasers? Landmines? Each new enemy explores the basic aspect of movement very well without introducing new attacks or block mechanics. It's amazing. Environmental hazards also progress the movement challenges very well. At the beginning, there are almost no ways of losing by falling down. Towards the very end, there's lava everywhere. Pacing is meticulous. However, there is no mechanical progression of boss fights. Each one of them is built with the same building blocks. Those only get harder in the same dimension. Tighter, faster, longer. It is harder to pass them, but I personally wasn't looking towards them after the third one. They don't use any of the newly introduced mechanics to create more challenging experiences. They just crank the previous encounter to 11 and hope for the best. They remain great spectacles, but it's not amazing, just great. That's how the game feels to be played. It's a solid mechanical experience. If it was amazing, I would say it's a must play, but again, it's great. You should play it if you have occasion and you haven't played it yet, but it is not a must play. With that out of the way, let's talk about the plot. Spoiler warning, obviously. If you haven't played the game, here's a very quick summary of the story. Rei jumps into the Ultra Void to rendezvous with her Void Runners squad. The Ultra Void is on a collision course with their home planet, and they want to destroy it by activating the Star Seed. However, everything went to shit. Therefore, as a last resort, Rei activates the Star Seed and creates a time loop while splitting herself into Rei and Echo. This action also kills every Void Runner. Rei is sent back to the beginning of the game where we start playing her. Without memories of what happened, she plunges into the void over and over again, activating the Star Seed in every loop, taking her back to the beginning. At the end of every loop, she learns that her planet is long gone. Incapable of accepting the truth, she tries to set everything back again, only to repeat everything. To me, this is a story about moving on. Rei is incapable of doing that, so she repeats the events like someone repeating a story inside her head. But what meaning have the NPCs, the remnants, Echo? Why are there certain aspects that do not reset to the original state? Who is Dunderpaw? I don't believe Dunderpaw has any deeper meaning in the story. He is just a narrative exposition tool. A good one, but not connected to the main part. I will leave him to his eternal rest. Moving on is hard. For Rei, it's extra hard to move on, because she is the one dooming her entire squad. She is the one that activated the Star Seed. She is the cause. So, she repeats everything inside her head. Why don't some aspects repeat? Why is her home planet already scattered across Ultravoid, allowing her to navigate more freely? Because she already knows the finale. This is just a repeat, tainted by the knowledge of the end. She is now incapable of separating the true events from her vision of how they should have played out. She no longer crash lands with the squad. She wants to be a hero who comes at the very last moment, finds everybody and has a happy ending. But there's no happy ending. Unable to accept that she's the one that caused all of this, she starts to resent her friends. Her friends died because they were not good enough. Their approaches to the problem were flawed. Pressure, a shark, which means determination. Irving was always trying to brute force his way out of problems with sheer determination, stubborn as ever. Sentry? How is it that everything Versus had started malfunctioning? He wasn't able to fix anything? What if he didn't want his boosters to work? He actually adored this place. He wanted to actually protect it rather than destroy it. Piat would observe the greatest catastrophe with his mind, believing it was a revelation. Look at him now. Dagger? Gozam tried to backstab the cause the moment he understood something was wrong. So, Ray stabbed him back. Hunter? Hafty was supposed to hunt for answers and come back. She never came back. A fiery hunter that never returns home with his prey is only a predator. Twisted monsters. Freaks. Ray cannot handle the fact that she's the one that killed her friends, therefore she finds one aspect of their existence that she can exaggerate, then twists them into abominations based on that. Ray, to justify her betrayal, creates remnants. What about the remaining NPCs? Lyris, Arik and Ames. I think they explore different reasons for not being able to move on. They serve Ray as justification for her inability to continue living, by pointing fingers at different people with similar problems. Lyris' grief doesn't allow her to move on. She was so heavily dependent on her husband that losing him is manifested as losing both a leg and an arm. She now must find her own strength to move on. Arik is incapable of moving on because of his current life. He is a gardener and the garden must be tended to. He cannot abandon it. He now must decide to turn back on something he cared about if he wants to move on. However, Ames, just like he shouts orders at Ray, he also must have his life ordered by somebody else. Once the orders stopped coming, he doesn't know how to live his own life. Ray points finger at every one of them, justifying her own inability to move on. If they can, maybe she can also just remain here for a little bit longer. The problem is that she can't, at least not without sacrificing something in return. Echo lingers on, unable to move on because she's connected to Ray, but also not looped. She sees each try as another approach. She decays with each try, reminding. One can sit in the same mind space for eternity, but his body will slowly decay. It doesn't matter how many times a moment is replayed, the true world moves on. I really loved diving deep into Solar Rush. The very moment Ouroboros showed up, I already knew that I am in for a treat. It's great. The atmosphere, visuals, momentum. I definitely recommend playing the game if you still haven't. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. Fight me in the comments below. Good luck and have fun.